The Galactic Medical Conference was supposed to be boring. That is what Dr. Velris Thorn of the Chem 3 Medical Institute, had anticipated when I boarded the transport vessel 3 cycles ago. Boring lectures, boring dietary discussions, boring debates about proper sterilization techniques for 14 different species, none of which could agree on what constituted actual cleanliness. Instead, I found myself crouched behind an overturned examination table while something with too many teeth and not enough manners tried very hard to eat everyone in Conference Hall 7. The creature, a Vrexian stalker someone had foolishly smuggled aboard as an exotic pet, stood nearly 3 meters tall. Its 6 legs moved with that horrible, synchronized grace that predators possess, the kind that makes prey species like myself want to curl into a ball and pray to gods we stopped believing in centuries ago. "Stay down," someone hissed from my left. A Tilnari physician, her feathers pressed flat against her skull in absolute terror. "It can smell fear. Everything can smell fear." I shot back. My tail curled so tightly around my torso it was cutting off circulation. "That is not helpful information." The stalker roared, a sound that bypassed my ears entirely and went straight to the part of my brain responsible for screaming and running. Several delegates did exactly that. The creature pounced, moving with impossible speed for something so large. Dingthasteder roared abrader. The stalker roared, a sound that bypassed my ears entirely and went straight to the part of my brain responsible for screaming and running. Then something unexpected happened. A human stepped into its path. Now, I had met humans before. The galaxy had been meeting humans for about 20 standard years now, ever since they stumbled out of their little corner of space with their Deathworld credentials and their baffling disregard for sensible safety protocols. This particular human, a medical liaison named Marcus Webb, had spent the entire conference asking uncomfortable questions about why certain species could not handle simple atmospheric pressure changes. He was tall by human standards, which meant moderately tall by galactic ones, with dark skin and darker hair pulled back from his face. He wore the standard conference attire, a simple tunic and pants that would not offend any of the represented species' sensibilities. He was not wearing armor. He was not carrying weapons. He was not even wearing protective gloves. "Hey," Marcus shouted at the stalker, actually stepping closer to the thing. "Over here, ugly." The stalker's 4 eyes focused on him. Its mouth, a nightmare of evolutionary excess, opened wider. "Is he insane?" Ulda Tilnari whispered. "Is this a human thing? Are they all like this?" "Usually," I admitted, unable to look away. The stalker lunged. Marcus did not run. He did not even flinch. Instead, he did something I had only seen in nature documentaries about primitive predators. He sidestepped. Not quickly, not with any particular grace, just moved. The stalker sailed past him, its claws scraping the reinforced floor with a sound that made my teeth hurt. Before it could recover, Marcus grabbed one of its rear legs. "Okay," he said, his voice remarkably calm for someone touching a creature that could tear him apart with minimal effort. "Let's talk about anatomy. What happened next violated several laws of physics and at least one principle of medical ethics." Marcus twisted. The stalker screamed, a sound I did not know it could make. Something in its leg made a wet, crunching noise that sent every doctor in the room into a mental catalog of which bones had just broken, and how many. "Phyrexian stalkers," Marcus explained, still holding the creature's leg at an angle that looked profoundly wrong.
"They have a really interesting skeletal structure."
"See, they are ambush predators, right? So they are built for explosive power, not sustained grappling. Their leg joints, especially these rear ones, can only bend in one direction." He demonstrated.
"Oh!"
The stalker tried to turn, to bring its claws to bear. Marcus simply walked in a circle, maintaining that impossible grip, forcing the creature to hobble in an awkward rotation. "The ligaments here," he continued, tapping a spot on the leg with his free hand, "are incredibly strong for forward motion, but laterally," he applied pressure. The stalker shrieked again. "Not so much." "Someone stop him," a delegate shouted. "He is torturing it. He is lecturing it." I corrected, watching with a mixture of horror and fascination. "There is a difference." Marcus was not done. Still maintaining his grip, he used his other hand to reach up and press 2 fingers against the stalker's lower spine, just where the thorax met the abdomen. The creature went rigid. "Neural cluster," Marcus said, like he was pointing out an interesting feature on a medical scan. "Most hexapodal predators have them. Stimulate it right, You override their voluntary muscle control. They taught us this in basic xenobiology. They did not teach us that. The Tilnari protested. Well, Marcus shrugged. Maybe human xenobiology is different. We had to learn this stuff, because you know our planet. His planet. Earth. The Deathworld. The place where the gravity was too high, the weather was too violent, the fauna was too aggressive, and somehow humans had not only survived but thrived. They had developed complex societies, advanced technology, and apparently a very hands-on approach to dealing with apex predators. Security finally arrived, 3 Corvin guards with neural disruptors drawn. They looked at Marcus, looked at the paralyzed stalker, looked at Marcus again. "Do you need assistance, Dr. Webb?" the lead guard asked, his translator struggling with a tone that I suspected was supposed to be professional but came out vaguely confused. "Nah, I got it," Marcus said. "Just need someone to sedate this guy. Standard Verxian dosage should work, maybe a little extra for the stress." One of the guards moved forward with an injector. Marcus released his grip, stepping back smoothly. As the stalker collapsed, the sedative taking effect almost immediately, it hit the floor with a thud that shook the room. Marcus rolled his shoulders, cracking his neck with a sound that made several people wince. Silence. Absolute, stunned silence. Then chaos erupted. Not panic this time, but something almost worse. Questions. Dozens of medical professionals, representing species from across the known galaxy, all trying to understand what they had just witnessed. "How did you know the neural cluster location? What was the precise angle of force application on the joint? Can you demonstrate that again? Is this technique species-specific or broadly applicable?" Marcus held up his hands, laughing. Okay.
One at a time.
"Look, I am happy to share. That is literally why I am here, right? Cross-species medical exchange." That was when Station Administrator Quirix arrived, all 4 of her arms gesticulating in what I recognized as extreme agitation. "What happened here? I received reports of a dangerous creature, and now I find..." She stared at the unconscious stalker, then at Marcus. "Did you do this?" "Define did," Marcus said. "The humans subdued the predator." I spoke up, while surprising myself. "Without weapons, without causing permanent harm. He demonstrated remarkable knowledge of xenobiology, and applied it under pressure." Quirix's eye stalk swiveled toward me. "You are defending him?" "I am stating facts," I said, standing up from behind my table. My legs still felt shaky, but I managed to maintain dignity. Mostly, he saved lives. Probably mine specifically, since I was directly in the creature's path. "The creature should not have been here at all," Quirix snapped. "We are investigating who brought it aboard. Meanwhile, Dr. Webb, I must ask you to submit a full report on your actions. The council will need to review your methods." "Sure thing," Marcus said easily. "I will write it up tonight. Can I include diagrams? I feel like diagrams would help." After Quirix left, still muttering about regulations and proper protocols, the questions resumed. August, to his credit, answered every single one. August. He sketched anatomical structures on a borrowed datapad. He explained leverage points and nerve clusters. He discussed the difference between disabling and killing, and why the former was always preferable when possible. "The thing is," he said, addressing the growing crowd, "most predators are not actually that hard to handle if you understand their biomechanics. They are evolved for specific hunting strategies, which means they have specific vulnerabilities. You just have to know where to look." "But how do you know?" someone asked. A Draxi physician, her scale still pale with residual fear. "How do humans know these things?" Marcus's expression shifted, becoming something harder to read. "Because on Earth, knowing how to handle predators was the difference between surviving and being food. We did not have the luxury of evolving in nice, safe environments. We had to learn, all of us. It is just part of growing up." The room went quiet again. I thought about my own childhood, safe in the carefully controlled environments of the Kenthori homeworld. The most dangerous thing I had encountered was a particularly aggressive pollinator insect, and even that had sent me running for adult protection. "Your children learn this?" I asked. "Some basics, yeah," Marcus nodded. "I mean, not how to wrestle stalkers specifically, but how to read body language, how to identify dangerous versus harmless creatures, basic escape and evasion techniques. It is like learning to swim or climb, just practical skills." "Climbing is a practical skill?" the Tilnari asked faintly. "On Earth, absolutely. Never know when you might need to get up a tree away from something that wants to eat you. The implications of that statement settled over the room like a heavy blanket. These humans, these Deathworlders, they grew up in an environment so hostile that tree climbing was considered a survival necessity, and yet they seemed so casual about it. Marcus was smiling, answering questions with the patience of a teacher, occasionally demonstrating a grip or stance that made my survival instincts scream. "I have a question," I said, raising one hand. "Why did you step forward? When the stalker appeared, you could have hidden like the rest of us. You could have waited for security. Why deliberately put yourself in danger?" Marcus looked at me, his expression thoughtful. "Because I could help. Look, I get that I am wired differently than most species here. Humans are. But that means I have abilities others don't. Would not be much of a doctor if I let people die because helping was slightly risky, right?" "Slightly risky," someone muttered. "He calls facing a stalker slightly risky." "I mean, I was never actually in that much danger," Marcus said. "Once I had the leg controlled, it could not really hurt me. And I knew where the neural cluster was, so paralysis was an option if things got weird. Worst case, I break its leg completely. It goes into shock. Problem solved." The casual way he discussed maiming a creature that outweighed him by a factor of 3 was somehow more unsettling than watching him actually do it. But also, I had to admit, impressive. Terrifyingly, horrifyingly impressive. The rest of the conference day was cancelled, while security dealt with the stalker situation and interviewed witnesses. I found myself in the station lounge with several other delegates, all of us nursing drinks and processing what we had seen. "Humans are insane," the Draxi physician declared, on her third glass of something purple and mildly toxic to anyone not from her homeworld. "Completely, utterly insane. But effective," I pointed out. "That creature would have killed several of us before security arrived. Webb stopped it in under a minute, with no serious injuries to anyone. Including the stalker," the Tilnari added. "Did you see him check its leg afterward, actually concerned about whether he had caused too much damage? Who shows compassion to something that just tried to eat them?" "Humans, apparently," I said. "It is the Deathworld thing." Another delegate spoke up, a Helton, his crystalline features catching the light. "They evolved alongside creatures that could kill them easily, so they developed methods to survive anyway. Pattern recognition, tool use, tactical thinking, and apparently very specific anatomical knowledge. Still does not explain why he stepped forward," I said. "Survival instinct should have made him hide, not engage." "Maybe human survival instinct is different," the Tilnari suggested. "Maybe for them the best chance of survival is active engagement rather than passive hiding." That thought kept me up most of the night cycle.
I'll share.
The idea that humans, these strange Deathworlders, had evolved to respond to danger by facing it directly,
Hi.
by learning its weaknesses, by turning predators into problems that could be solved with the right application of knowledge and force. It was insane. It was reckless. It was beginning to suspect exactly why the humans were going to change everything. The next morning, I attended Marcus's scheduled lecture. I had not planned to. My original schedule had me in a panel discussion about proper surgical technique for silicon-based lifeforms, but I found myself at the back of Conference Hall 3, along with at least twice the normal attendance. Word had spread fast. Marcus stood at the front, looking remarkably unbothered by the increased crowd. He had prepared a presentation, complete with those diagrams he had promised. The title displayed on the large screen behind him read, "Practical Interspecies Predator Management for Medical Personnel." "Morning, everyone," he started. "So, yesterday got a little exciting. Today let's talk about why that happened, what I did, and how the principles might apply to other situations. Because honestly, knowing how to handle dangerous creatures is a skill everyone should have, not just humans." He clicked to the first slide. It showed a simplified diagram of the Vrixian stalker, with several points highlighted in red. "Let us start with basic threat assessment." For the next hour, Marcus Webb proceeded to give the most unsettling, fascinating, and genuinely useful lecture I had ever attended. He discussed predator behavior patterns. He explained how to identify anatomical weak points across different body structures. He demonstrated, using volunteers from the audience, how leverage and positioning could allow a smaller being to control a larger one. The key, he explained, gently manipulating a volunteer's arm to show a joint lock that looked profoundly uncomfortable, is understanding that size is not everything. Physics is, anatomy is. If you know where and how to apply force, You can control almost anything. Sorry, Kelvin. You okay? The volunteer, a Reeton male, nearly twice Marcus's size, nodded shakily as Marcus released him. That was educational. And painful. Yeah, joint locks hurt. That is kind of the point. The pain makes the threat stop fighting. But notice, I did not actually injure you. That is important. We are doctors, right? Our job is to preserve life when possible, even when dealing with something aggressive. He clicked to another slide, this one showing various species common in civilized space.
All fierce. Now let us talk about application beyond just predators. How many of you have had to deal with confused or panicking patients? Show of hands.
Nearly everyone raised a hand, including me. Right so? Similar principles apply. Understanding body mechanics lets you safely restrain someone without hurting them, or getting hurt yourself. It is not about violence, it is about control. The lecture continued, covering scenarios I had never considered. How to handle a patient experiencing a violent medical emergency. How to evacuate people who were too injured or panicked to move themselves. How to perform emergency medical procedures in unsafe environments. The galaxy is not always a safe place, Marcus said as he wrapped up. We all know that, and as medical professionals, we often end up in dangerous situations because that is where people need help. So we need to know how to operate in those conditions, not just how to treat injuries but how to avoid causing them in the first place. The applause was thunderous. As people filtered out, many stopped to thank Marcus personally or ask additional questions. I waited until the crowd thinned, then approached. Dr. Webb, I said. That was remarkable. Thanks, he smiled. I was worried it might be too Earth-centric. Good to know the information translated. It did.
Very much so.
I hesitated, then asked the question that had been nagging at me since yesterday. Can I ask, how old were you when you learned these techniques? Marcus thought about it. Basic stuff? Maybe 7 or 8 standard years. More advanced techniques like what I used yesterday. I learned in my teens. Some I did not pick up until medical school. 7 years old. Human children learning to disable predators at 7 years old. Your planet is terrifying, I said. Yeah, Marcus agreed cheerfully. But it makes great doctors. We are used to working under pressure. That, I was beginning to realize, was an understatement, and possibly the most important thing the galaxy was going to learn about humans. 3 days after the Stalker incident, Station Administrator Quirix called an emergency medical council meeting. I arrived early, my datapad loaded with notes from Marcus's lecture and several follow-up research papers I had compiled. The conference hall buzzed with nervous energy. Everyone knew this meeting concerned the human, though exactly what form that concern would take remained unclear. Quirix entered precisely on time, her forearms carrying enough documentation to fill a small archive. She arranged the papers with excessive care before addressing the assembled delegates. We have reviewed the incident footage 17 times. She began without preamble. We have consulted with xenobiological experts, security specialists and legal advisors across 4 sectors. The conclusion is, well, complicated. Complicated how?
Sex.
Dr. Mirren, a Vostok male who specialized in trauma medicine. The human saved lives. Seems straightforward to me. The human employed techniques not registered with the Galactic Medical Authority, Quirix countered. Techniques that in the wrong hands could cause severe harm. Physically restrained a dangerous creature using methods that could be classified as combat training. He used medical knowledge. I interjected. Knowledge of anatomy, physiology, and neural structures. That is literally what we do. Quirix's eye stalks fixed on me. You have been quite vocal in defending Dr. Webb, Velris. May I ask why? Good question. Why was I a Kenthari physician who prided myself on following proper protocols, defending a human who treated predators like particularly aggressive medical equipment? Because he was right, I said simply. His methods worked. 0 fatalities, minimal injuries, even to the creature itself, and he shared his knowledge freely afterward. That is what this conference is supposed to be about, is it not? Cross-species medical exchange. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Quirix's posture stiffened, a sign of irritation in her species. Nevertheless, she said firmly, the council has concerns. They want reassurances that humans will not turn medical facilities into, and I quote, combat training centers for Deathworld techniques. Oh, for crying out loud. someone said from the doorway. We all turned. Marcus stood there, looking less amused than usual. He carried his own datapad and wore an expression I had not seen before. Loafer, something harder, more dangerous perhaps. May I speak? He asked, not waiting for permission before walking to the front of the room. Because I have been hearing these concerns for 3 days now, and I think we need to clear some things up. Quirix gestured reluctantly. The floor is yours, Dr. Webb. Marcus set his datapad on the presentation stand and pulled up a file. The screen behind him lit up with statistics, fatality rates, injury reports, incident response times. These are the numbers from stations that have human medical staff versus those that do not, he said. Notice anything? The difference was stark. Stations with human personnel showed significantly lower mortality rates during emergencies, faster response times, better outcomes in violent patient incidents. Now look at this, Marcus continued, switching to another chart. Predator attacks, medical emergencies in hostile environments, natural disasters. See the pattern? Humans do not just survive these situations, we excel in them, because we trained for them, because our entire evolutionary history prepared us for exactly these scenarios. That is precisely the concern, Quirix said. You are too good at violence. We are good at survival, Marcus corrected sharply. There is a difference. A big one. Yes, I know how to disable a predator. I also know how to stabilize 14 different species under combat conditions. I can perform surgery in zero gravity, treat radiation poisoning with limited supplies, and keep patients alive in environments that would kill most doctors here within minutes. That is not violence. That is competence. The room had gone very quiet. Marcus's intensity filled the space, reminding everyone that humans might be friendly and helpful, but they were still from a death world, still shaped by pressures most species could barely imagine. Here is what I think the real issue is, Marcus said, his voice softening slightly. You are scared of us, not because we are violent, but because we are good at things you consider impossible. We look at situations you call hopeless and see problems we can solve. That makes you uncomfortable because it highlights limitations you did not know you had. That is not fair, someone protested. Maybe not, Marcus agreed, but it is true. Look, I understand the concern. Really, I do. Humans are new to the galactic community. We do things differently. Sometimes that is scary. But here is the thing. We are not going anywhere. We are part of this galaxy now. And you can either learn from us, let us learn from you, and make everyone safer and more capable, or you can try to suppress what we know because it makes you nervous. Your choice.
He picked up his datapad.
So, Seraph prepared a full curriculum. Everything I know about emergency response, threat management, and high-stress medical procedures.
It is yours, free of charge, if you want it.
If not, well, I will go back to Earth and keep doing what I do there. But people will die who did not have to. Just saying. Marcus left without waiting for a response. The silence he left behind was deafening. Quirix looked around the room. Well, that was, does anyone have thoughts? I have one, I said, standing up. I want that curriculum. All of it. Because he is right. We have limitations we pretend do not exist, because acknowledging them is uncomfortable. The humans are offering to help us overcome those limitations. Turning that down because we are too proud or too scared is the height of stupidity. Seconded, Dr. Mirren called out. My trauma ward could use those techniques. Last month we lost 2 patients in restraint situations that went wrong. If Webb's methods could prevent that. Third, the Tilnari physician added. I hate admitting this, but watching him work made me realize how unprepared we are for real emergencies. We are good at controlled environments, sterile conditions, predictable situations. But when things go wrong, truly wrong, we panic. Humans apparently do not. More voices joined in. Not everyone agreed, but the tide was clearly shifting. Quirix looked increasingly uncomfortable, as delegate after delegate spoke in favor of Marcus's proposal. Very well, she finally said. I will relay these sentiments to the council. However, I make no promises about their response. The political situation with humans remains delicate. After the meeting, I found Marcus in one of the observation lounges, staring out at the stars. He looked tired, older somehow than his actual age. That was quite a speech, I said, settling into a seat beside him. Yeah, well, I am tired of apologizing for being competent, he sighed. You know what the worst part is? Back home, I am considered average. Good at my job, sure, But nothing special. Come out here, and suddenly I am either a dangerous lunatic or some kind of superhero. It is exhausting. Perhaps the truth is somewhere in between, I suggested. You are exceptionally capable by our standards, even if you are normal by yours. That is not an insult. It is simply fact. I guess. He was quiet for a moment. Can I ask you something? Why did you defend me? We barely know each other. I considered the question carefully. Because you were right. And because I became a doctor to help people, not to maintain comfortable illusions about my own capabilities. If learning from you makes me better at saving lives, then my pride is not worth more than those lives. Marcus smiled, the first genuine one I had seen since the meeting. You know, most species do not think like that. They get very attached to their pride. Most species did not evolve on Deathworlds. I pointed out, you learn humility quickly when the environment constantly reminds you of your vulnerabilities. We Kenthari evolved on a gentle world, so we built pride instead, but pride makes poor armor against reality. That is pretty philosophical. I have been thinking a lot the past few days, about evolution, about adaptation, about what it means that humans can do things we cannot. I turned to face him fully. Your people are going to change the galaxy, Marcus. Not through conquest or force, but through competence. Through showing the rest of us what is possible when you refuse to accept limitations. That sounds scary when you say it like that. It should.
Change is always scary.
But also necessary. The galaxy has been static for a long time. Too long, perhaps. We have grown comfortable, complacent. Then you humans show up and demonstrate that our comfortable assumptions about what is possible were wrong. Of course people are scared. Marcus laughed softly. So what do we do about it? You keep teaching, I keep learning. Eventually, enough others will follow that the scared ones will not matter anymore. I pulled out my datapad. Speaking of which, I have been working on something. A proposal for a joint training program. Human instructors working with non-human medical staff to develop hybrid protocols, combining your practical experience with our theoretical knowledge. Interested? His eyes lit up. Seriously? Yeah, absolutely. That is exactly what I have been hoping for. Good. Because I already submitted it to 3 major medical academies. 2 have responded positively. The 3rd wants to schedule a demonstration. You did not waste time. Time is something patients do not have, I said. Every day we delay implementing better practices. Someone dies who should not have. That is unacceptable. Over the next several weeks the conference continued. But its character changed fundamentally. Marcus's curriculum became the hottest topic. Small groups formed, practicing techniques under his supervision. Arguments broke out, not about whether humans were too dangerous, but about the best way to adapt human methods for different species' physiologies. I found myself leading one such group, focused on emergency restraint procedures. We had physicians from 8 different species, all struggling to understand principles that felt completely alien. I still do not understand how you expect me to perform this hold, complained Jorvik, a Draxi male with limited upper body flexibility. My joints do not bend that way. Then we adapt, I said, demonstrating a modified version. The principle is leverage. The specific technique can change based on your anatomy. Here, try this angle instead. Jorvik attempted the modified hold on our volunteer. It worked, though not as smoothly as when Marcus demonstrated. Good enough. See? I said, not about copying humans exactly, about understanding the underlying concepts and applying them appropriately. You sound like Webb, someone observed. I will take that as a compliment. Not everyone was pleased with these developments. A faction of traditionalists formed, led by Dr. Sarex, a Corvan physician with 30 years of experience and strong opinions about proper medical protocols. This is madness, he declared during one particularly heated debate. We are abandoning centuries of established practice for Deathworld barbarism. We are expanding our capabilities, I countered. Nothing we are learning contradicts existing knowledge. It supplements it. You teach doctors to fight. We teach doctors to survive long enough to help patients. There is a difference. Is there? Where is the line, Velris? When does medical knowledge become weapon training? That question, I had to admit, was legitimate. Where was the line? Marcus insisted his techniques were purely defensive, purely about control rather than harm. But control could become coercion easily enough. Knowledge of anatomy could disable or it could kill depending on application. The line is intent, Marcus said. when I brought the concern to him. I teach people to preserve life, including their own. If someone chooses to misuse that knowledge, that is on them, not me. We do not stop teaching surgery because someone might use a scalpel to hurt people. Not the same thing. Exactly the same thing. All knowledge is neutral. What matters is how you use it. He paused. Look, I get the concern. Really, but you cannot protect people by keeping them ignorant. You just make them vulnerable. The philosophical debate might have continued indefinitely if not for the second incident. It happened during a practical demonstration in one of the training labs. We were working with sedated animals, teaching proper handling techniques for aggressive patients. Standard stuff, carefully controlled. Then the environmental systems failed. Not completely, just enough to cause a temperature spike in the containment units. Just enough to wake the sedated creatures early. Just enough to turn a controlled demonstration into a very real crisis. 3 Velkin prowlers, medium-sized predators known for pack-hunting behavior, suddenly awake and very agitated in a room full of medical personnel who had, seconds ago, been learning theoretical restraint techniques. Time did something strange.
It stretched and compressed simultaneously.
I saw everything with perfect clarity. The prowlers orienting on the nearest targets, Dr. Sarek's frozen in fear directly in their path, other delegates scrambling backward, tripping over equipment. Then I moved. Not thinking, not planning, just applying what I had learned. I grabbed the nearest heavy object, a portable scanner, and threw it, not at the prowlers, but past them, creating noise and distraction. They turned toward the sound. Predator instincts responding to movement. That gave me 3 seconds. I used 2. The lead prowler lunged at Sarek's. Ty intercepted, using the examination table between us as a barrier. The creature hit it hard, momentum working against it. While it was off balance, I grabbed its neck at the precise point Marcus had shown us, where the neural cluster sat vulnerable. I pressed hard. The prowler went rigid. Restraint positions. I shouted at the others, my voice surprising me with its steadiness. Now. Training kicked in. 3 other physicians moved forward, applying holds Marcus had taught us. The other 2 prowlers struggled briefly, then calmed as we hit the right pressure points. Security arrived 30 seconds later to find 5 medical professionals successfully restraining 3 predators without injuries to anyone. What happened here? The lead guard demanded. Environmental malfunction, I said, still holding my prowler. Someone should check the containment unit controls. And we need sedatives, standard dosage for Velkin prowlers. Quickly, please. As the guards administered sedatives and took over restraint duties, I finally released my grip. My hands were shaking. My legs felt weak. But I was alive. Sarek was alive. Everyone was alive. You saved my life, Sarek said quietly. He looked stunned. You moved without hesitation. Alst used those techniques perfectly. Not perfectly, I said, but well enough. That is what matters. Marcus appeared minutes later, having heard the commotion. He took in the scene, the sedated prowlers, the shaken but unharmed delegates. Everyone okay? He asked. Thanks to Velris, Sarek said. He turned to me. I was wrong. I see that now. This is not barbarism. This is preparedness. You saved me with knowledge I tried to suppress. I apologize. Apology accepted, I said. Now perhaps you could help me sit down before I fall down. My legs have stopped working properly. Laughter, shaky but genuine, rippled through the room. The tension broke. We were alive, we were safe, and we had just proven that humans were not the only ones who could handle emergencies effectively. The incident changed everything. Opposition to the training program evaporated overnight. Suddenly everyone wanted to learn what we had learned. Requests flooded in from medical facilities across the sector. Could we teach their staff? Could we develop specialized programs? Could humans provide emergency response consultation? This is getting big, Marcus said during one of our planning sessions. Bigger than just a conference program. You realize what you started? We started, I corrected. You provided the knowledge, I simply demonstrated its utility. But yes, I realize, we are creating something new here, a synthesis of human practical knowledge and galactic medical theory. Should probably give it a name then. We thought about it. Finally, I suggested, how about emergency xenobiology and response training? EXRT for short. Sounds official. I like it. Marcus grinned. Think the galaxy is ready for Deathworld medicine? No, I said honestly. But they need it anyway. Sometimes being ready and being prepared are different things. We cannot wait for perfect readiness. We move forward with what we have. That is very human of you. Perhaps spending time with humans is contagious. The conference ended 2 weeks later, but it was really just a beginning. EXRT became a formal program, sanctioned by the Galactic Medical Authority. After considerable debate, Marcus signed on as head instructor. I became his deputy, specializing in adaptation protocols for non-human species. On the final night, we held a small celebration. Delegates who had once feared or distrusted Marcus now competed to buy him drinks. Stories were shared. Friendships were formed. The galaxy, I thought, was becoming a little bit smaller, a little bit safer. "What are you going to do now?" Marcus asked me. "You could go back to your old position. Nice, safe, comfortable." "I could," I agreed. "But that would be rather boring, would it not? Besides, someone needs to make sure you do not terrify all the new students too badly. You humans have a tendency toward the dramatic," says the person who threw a scanner at a prowler. That was calculated distraction, not drama. Sure it was. We watched the stars together, comfortable in the silence. The galaxy had not changed. Not really, but we had. And through us, maybe the galaxy would change too. One trained physician at a time. One saved life at a time. "Thank you," I said eventually, "for stepping forward that day, for sharing what you know, for being patient with those of us who were too proud or too scared to learn." "Thank you for being willing to learn," Marcus replied, "for seeing past the Deathworld thing to the actual knowledge, for proving that this can work." "It has to work," I said, "because humans are here now and you are not leaving. So either we adapt and grow stronger together, or we stagnate and fall behind. I prefer the first option." "Good, because I brought course materials for Phase 2 of the training program." "There is a Phase 2? "Velris, there are 7 phases. We are just getting started." I groaned, but I was smiling. Terrifying, exhausting, brilliant humans. The galaxy had no idea what it was in for. But I did, and I could not wait. 3 months later, the first EXRT facility opened on a neutral station. Within a year, there were 20. Within 5 years, every major medical facility in civilized space had staff trained in human emergency response techniques. Mortality rates dropped. Survival rates in hostile situations increased dramatically. Humans, it turned out, were not just warriors from a death world. They were teachers, innovators, partners in building something better. And me, I was no longer just a Kantari physician who played it safe. I was Dr. Velris Thorn, co-founder of a program that changed galactic medicine forever. I had stared down predators, challenged my limitations, and learned that sometimes the scariest thing you can do is admit you have something to learn. The Deathworlders taught us that, along with approximately 700 other things, because Marcus was not kidding about those 7 phases. Best decision I ever made was stepping out from behind that examination table and choosing to learn instead of hide. Turns out facing your fears is contagious. Thank the stars for that.